Hi guys, Rob46 and welcome yourselves back to MotoGP 21 on the Xbox Series X. We're doing a 100% race around the Red Bull Ring. It is the Styrian Grand Prix and we're going to be running through all three categories. So yeah, if you don't want to have any spoilers, then be sure to come back to this video after you watch all of the racing. But before we begin, obviously I'm using Fabio Quartararo for this race because he won the previous race at Assen, and then next time out when we come back to Red Bull Ring for the second race, we'll be using the winner from this round. So yeah, that's why I'm using Quartararo. It took me a few attempts to kind of get back into the swing of things using a MotoGP bike, and then I kind of realised, because I kept out braking myself, I kind of then realised I had the wrong front brake in and it was just overheating. So I managed to put the correct front brake in and we were able to actually be competitive. But yeah, it's very, very difficult to do a solid race around here and not make too many mistakes. Obviously, you've got some really, really hard braking zones. The bikes make some weird shapes in some of the corners, and I didn't really enjoy doing this one, if I'm honest, and I'm not really looking forward to doing it again. Although we will be using a different bike, which I'm kind of looking forward to. But yeah, it was quite tough recording this one, doing 100% race distance around here. Yeah, I did turn the tyre wear off just because the tyre wear, even on 100%, doesn't work properly on this game. So that's why I've not got it turned on. Same with fuel as well. I mean, fuel isn't too bad, but you can't have one on without the other. Right. Moto3, and it was a bit of an interesting Moto3 race. We had a bit of rain in the morning, so the track was damp. It was wetter on some sections than other sections, but a dry line was starting to appear before they started, and a few riders decided to take a big gamble on slick tyres. Riders such as Darren Binder, his teammate John McPhee, Onchu as well, decided to take a last minute gamble. It was that last minute that unfortunately he then had to start from the back of the grid, because you're not allowed to make any changes once the 3-minute border's gone out to obviously start the race, and his mechanics were changing his wet tyres over to slicks, and yeah, that meant that he had to start from the back of the grid because he broke the rules. There was a couple of others I think as well that went for slick tyres. Dennis Foggia, he went for slick tyres, but yeah, it was still wet to begin with, so those on slick tyres had to go so careful on the opening few laps, just because there was still spray being kicked up on the straights. And you know, Moto3s aren't too bad because they haven't got that much power, so they're not going to spin up the rear wheel too much on the straights and that. Obviously with Moto2 and MotoGP, there's a whole different story, and they wouldn't have been able to get away with it. But yeah, those riders, they started on slicks, and yeah, it obviously wasn't the tyre choice to go with at the beginning of the race, but would it dry out enough for them to come into play? It was a bit of an odd race for Moto3. It wasn't as it usually is, having, you know, a big battle for the lead. It was literally two riders at the front. The two championship rivals of Sergio Garcia and Pedro Acosta. Those were the two at the front fighting for victory for the whole race. It was just them two. Once you know, they got a bit of a gap over third place, which was Fanati at the time. And yeah, once they got a gap, they just kept putting in fastest lap after fastest lap, getting quicker and quicker and quicker as the track dried out as well. And the wet tyres actually lasted pretty well on a drying track. Usually with you know, a higher powered machine, such as Moto2 or MotoGP, once the track starts drying, the wet rear tyre just starts overheating, spinning up, and just destroys itself. But not really the case with Moto3. And yeah, those two put on a hell of a show though. And they were fighting and chopping and changing throughout the whole race. Some quite aggressive moves as well, but both being respectful. And it was great to see at the front. You had Joan Masia, who did manage to get up to 3rd place past Romano Fenati. So he did manage to get in front of him. Darren Binder and John McPhee and all the others that had gone for the slick tyre, like I said, they had to go so careful in the opening 10 laps just because there was still so much water about and so much spray still being kicked up. But they done a good job. They were, you know, clicking away at the laps and chipping away at the lap times. And we were waiting for the crossover point where the slicks were going to come into play and be the tyre to be on. But it did come a little bit too little too late for the guys on slicks. They took a gamble, and unfortunately for them, it did not pay off. Pedro Acosta and Sergio Garcia obviously both are on wet tyres because they needed, well, obviously they're fighting for the championship, so they're going to do what the other one does. And, you know, because they don't want to take a gamble and then it backfires hugely. So they were both on wet tyres. The majority of the grid were on wet tyres. It took a lot of time for the dry tyres to really kick in. Darren Binder actually done a pretty good job at the beginning, and he was getting towards the points, and you know, it wasn't really that far into the race, so he had a really good feeling with the bike and the slick tyres on a damp track. McPhee was getting a bit quicker and quicker as the race was progressing. Koffler, his home race, he was in about 5th place at one point and looking really good. He's been off for a little bit, injured, but he's back, and yeah, he had a pretty decent race. So Philip Salach, he was back, and obviously he was well, replacing obviously the late Dupasquier in that team. But yeah, he was back. You had the Tech 3 KTM of Sasaki. He was doing pretty well as well towards the front. Yamanaka as well. Yuki Kuni was looking pretty good on the Team Asia Honda. Yeah, like I said, it was a bit of a strange Moto3 race. It wasn't, you know, the big brawl that you usually have with Moto3. It's still a decent race, especially between the front two, but it wasn't as explosive as we're used to seeing with Moto3 when you got like 15 bikes all in the front group. It was literally two. There was a bit of a group a bit further back for 3rd, which Romano Fenati, towards the end of the race, he obviously just saved his tyres a little bit better than some of the others. And yeah, he managed to get back past Joan Masia and get back into 3rd. When the track really did start drying out, even the lap times of the slicks were still not quite as quick as the full wets. There was a little bit of an overlap, and then Darren Binder did start taking some quite big chunks, but at that point he was quite a way behind the leaders, over 20 seconds. But you could really see him using the stability of the slick front in the braking zones. He was making up a lot of time in the braking areas, and we know that Binder's good on the brakes anyway. But yeah, he managed to get well inside the top 10, which was good to see. Actually, the best rider on the slicks of the day. But yeah, Pedro Acosta, Sergio Garcia went down to the final lap of the race, and Acosta went into the lead. Sergio Garcia got back in front, put some pretty aggressive moves on each other through here as well. So Sergio Garcia was leading at this point in the lap, And then into the next corner, which we're going to get to very, very soon, turn 9. Pedro Acosta put it up the inside, which caused Garcia to go a little bit wide. Garcia lost the front, went down. Sergio Garcia was obviously rolling in the gravel. Pedro Acosta went wide as well and actually ended up off track. But luckily for Garcia, because those two had such a big lead over everyone else, he managed to get back on his bike and still finish in second position, which was good to see. Obviously, he didn't deserve to crash or anything like that. He put on a really good race. Unfortunately, the wet front tyre just didn't like being slightly wide at that particular corner, and Danny went. And yeah, Pedro Acosta nearly lost the front as well. You see him save it, but that did cause him to go off track. But yeah, Pedro Acosta went on to win the race from Sergio Garcia in second place. Romano Fenati took the last podium position in third place. Joan Masia took fourth. Sasaki was fifth. Darren Binder ended up in sixth place with the slicks. Yamanaka was seventh. Yuki Kuni eighth. Koffler was ninth. Fernandez was 10th. Then you had Salach in 11th. Kaito Toba in 12th. John McPhee, another slick rider, in 13th. Then you had Gravera in 14th. And the last point scoring position went to Suzuki in 15th. Rest of the field was Fellon in 16th, Mino 17th, Alcoba 18th, Nepa 19th, Rodrigo was 20th, Dennis Onchu 21st, Dennis Foggia 22nd, and Riccardo Rossi was in 23rd place. Yeah, Mino was another rider on slicks as well. We had a non-starter in Carlos Tate, and only 2 DNFs, which was Izdaha. He unfortunately had 2 crashes in the race. And then Salvador as well. He unfortunately ended up crashing out of the race as well. So that was Moto 3. Now the championship, it's well and truly in favour of Pedro Acosta. He is leading on 183 points. Then you got Sergio Garcia in second on 130. In third place, it is Romano Fenati on the Husqvarna on 96 points. And then you got Dennis Foggia in fourth place. He is on 86. He's 1 point ahead of Joan Masia in fifth, who is on 85 points. Then at sixth place is Darren Binder. He is on 79 points. Sasaki in seventh. He's on 68. Antonelli in eighth. Antonelli didn't race because unfortunately he had a crash in qualifying and unfortunately injured himself. He's on 67, and ninth place is Gabriel Rodrigo on 59 points. So that was Moto 3. Now on to Moto 2, which was a little bit like a Moto 3 race, really. It was more of a Moto 3 race than Moto 3 was. It was good to see Moto 2 being a bit closer than it usually is. Usually it's a bit strung out. We had the announcement during FP4 of MotoGP mid-session. It was announced that Raul Fernandez would be moving up to MotoGP with Tech 3 KTM. Now, they spoke to team principal Pit Byra of KTM, and he said it wasn't the way that he wanted to do it. Unfortunately, with Fernandez obviously being a very sought-after rider, he was still getting offers from other manufacturers like Yamaha was still approaching him, trying to persuade him to ride for them in MotoGP next year. And obviously Pit Byra was not happy, and basically he wouldn't have been, upset if Fernandez wanted to stay in Moto 2 for another year, but he obviously doesn't want to lose him. So they've decided to move him up to Tech 3 KTM for next year. However, like I said, it happened, the announcement went out midway through FP4. Ika Lecuona came back in the garage, and then found out what had happened, and he was in tears because he knew that, you know, his MotoGP dream is potentially coming to an end. And yeah, obviously Danilo Petrucci doesn't really know what he's doing yet. It's looking likely maybe going to World Superbikes, but nothing concrete yet. So yeah, that was a bit of a strange one. It was Remy Gardner who was starting on pole position. Now the Red Bull KTMs in Moto2 throughout the whole weekend have struggled a little bit around here, but when it came to qualifying, they managed to perform with Remy Gardner taking pole position. Immediately off the start, it was Marco Bezzecchi who managed to get into the lead, and yeah, he tried to pull away, he tried to open up a gap, but unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to. Remy Gardner and Raul Fernandez managed to catch him. Gardner managed to get through. Fernandez started to have a few issues though with track limits warnings and the like, and yeah, he wasn't as comfortable as we've come to see him in Moto2. He was struggling around here a little bit, and didn't quite have the pace of the front runners, dropped back a bit as well. Sam Lowes, he was trying to get with the front group as well. He had a pretty decent start, but more issues for him throughout the race, and he started dropping like a stone quite badly towards the end of the race. His teammate Augusto Fernandez had a much better race than Lowes, and managed to get some decent points and rode really well. Ayogura, let's not forget he's a rookie. He was looking very strong here, to a point where he could have potentially won the race, but unfortunately for he exceeded track limits a little bit too much. He got a long lap penalty, which is at turn 1, and it's quite a long lap penalty around here compared to other circuits. It's almost like the one at Catalonia, which isn't around, you know, like a hairpin as such. It's here, you go straight on at turn 1, and then it just seems to yeah, go on forever, and then it comes back in just there on the left hand side. And when Ayogura done his long lap penalty, he actually touched the white line on exiting the long lap, and unfortunately, if you do that, it invalidates your long lap penalty, which is harsh, but those are the rules. You've got to stay within the white lines, and you're not allowed to touch them. We've seen riders like Zarco at Brno, was that last season, where, you know, the rider themselves can touch the white line, but no part of the bike can touch the white line or go over it. Because like we saw at Brno with, like I said, with Zarco, he put his knee down over the white line, but because the bike was still well inside, he managed to put in, you know, the best long lap I've ever seen. I think anyone's ever seen, and it didn't cost him much time at all. But yeah, Sam Lowes dropped back through the order. Remy Gardner made a rare mistake. He was trying to chase Bezzecchi. Bezzecchi at this point had got back into the lead and actually opened up the gap to about half a second, and it was going downhill into the right hand of turn 4, and yeah, he just kind of outbraked himself. I mean, he could have potentially run into the back of Bezzecchi if he wasn't careful enough, but, you know, he's a smart rider. He picked the bike up and ran off track, just kissed the gravel and went into it and lost quite a few places. That allowed a few riders to get back through. He managed to get back up to 4th place, especially after Ayogura had done his long lap penalty. But yeah, like I said, because Ayogura had unfortunately touched the white line, he then had 3 seconds added to his time at the end of the race as well, because he would have had to do the long lap penalty again, unfortunately. So yeah, that was that. You had a few DNFs in the form of Barry Boltus. Joe Roberts crashed out pretty early on, as did Hafiz Styrian. Hector Garzo was looking pretty good at one point, but he unfortunately crashed out. and so did Cameron Bobier. Simone Corsi, he also had to do a long lap penalty, but he crashed on lap 1. He got back on, he did finish, but he didn't have a very good day at all. But at the front, it was Marco Bezzecchi who managed to go on to take the win. He managed to keep Aaron Canet, who had a really good race and was trying to put a move on Marco Bezzecchi towards the end of the race and looking really strong. This was just before, or as Ayogura was catching them, before Ayogura had to do the long lap penalty. But then Marco Bezzecchi just managed to break Canet a little bit, managed to get the gap just over 1 second, and that enabled Bezzecchi to take the win quite comfortably from Aaron Canet in second place. Augusto Fernandez took home third place on the Mark VDS bike. Fourth place went to Remy Gardner. He did manage to salvage a fourth place. Ayogura got fifth place after his long lap penalty and his penalty as well, time penalty. Vietti, a good race from him, up to sixth position. Raul Fernandez, like I said, not the best of races for him. Seventh place, just ahead of Chantra in eighth. Good race from Chantra. Xavi Vierge was ninth. Marcel Schrotter was 10th. Jake Dixon just outside the top 10 in 11th place. Dan Laporta was 12th. Digi Antonio, a bit disappointing from Digi, in 13th. Even more disappointing from Sam Lowes, who, like I said, dropped like a stone. He finished in 14th place and only gains 2 points. And then the last point scorer was Albert Arenas in 15th. Then 16th place you had Thomas Luthi. 17th was Tony Arbolino. Stefano Manzi was in 18th place. Marcos Ramirez 19th. Jorge Navarro 20th. Lorenzo Baldassari 21st. Bulliger 22nd. Bo Ben Snyder was 23rd. Montella was 24th. And 25th was Simone Corsi. So yeah, it was a really good Moto2 race. Like I said, it was more of a Moto3 race than the actual Moto3 race was. So even though Remy Gardner didn't get inside the top 3, he still pulled out a little bit of an advantage over his teammate Fernandez. So Gardner leads on 197 points. Raul Fernandez is in second, still on 162. Marco Bezzecchi closed the gap in on Fernandez in third, though. He's on 153. And you got Sam Lowes in fourth on 101. And then Fabio Di Gianantonio in fifth. He's on 76. He is 1 point ahead of Aaron Canet in sixth, who is on 75. Just behind them in seventh is Marcel Schrotter. He's on 72 points. Eighth place is Augusto Fernandez. He is on 66 points. And ninth place is the rookie Ayogura. He is on 60 points. But yeah, unfortunately for Ayogura, like I said, he potentially had the pace to win the race around here, but just exceeded track limits too many times and messed up his long lap penalty as well, which is very unfortunate. But it is what it is. Now then, it is MotoGP time. We have already spoke about the news of Raul Fernandez moving up to MotoGP next season. We've also had the news of Valentino Rossi announcing he is retiring at the end of this season. Which, yeah, sad to see, but you know, yeah, unfortunately it is time. Danny Pedrosa wildcarding for KTM and Cal Crutchlow stepping in for the injured and recovering Franco Morbidelli. So yeah, we actually had a red flag again. Third race in a row around here we've had a red flag. Obviously last season we had that horrendous crash that happened up towards turn 3 involving Zarco and Morbidelli, just missing Vinales and Rossi. Then we had the next race, it was Vinales who had brake failure down towards turn 1 and he had to jump off the bike. This year, unfortunately, it was Danny Pedrosa who, out of turn 3, lost the rear. He went down, his bike laid in the track, and because obviously they go uphill at turn 3, it was a bit blind, and Lorenzo Savadori, unfortunately, at turn 3, crashed straight into Pedrosa's KTM, splitting the fuel tank, fuel everywhere, and a lot of fire everywhere as well. So they had to red flag the race. Luckily, both riders okay, both Pedrosa and Savadori okay. But yeah, they had a big clean-up job to do because of the amount of oil and fuel that was on the track. But they done a really good job. Didn't take too long. They got the road sweeper on there. They got the leaf blowers to dry the track as well. And yeah, it seemed to not affect the grip levels there at all, which was good. But yeah, the Red Bull Ring is starting to become one of those tracks where people are asking the question, is it safe to race here anymore? The riders have already said they can't race here if it rains too much, because when the F1 comes here, like up towards turn 3, the F1 cars, the bottom of the cars scrape along the actual track surface, and they've taken the top surface of the asphalt off the track, which makes it quite slippery. And when it rains and you get standing water on it, it just goes like sheet ice. So yeah, they were on about if it did rain heavily that they would potentially race on the Monday instead. Luckily that didn't happen. The rain stayed off. We had a dry race. We had a restart. One thing that did also happen in the first part of the race before the red flag, Marc Marquez put in a very tough move on Alicia Spargo into turn 1 on the first lap, which forced Alicia Spargo off track. When the red flag came out, Alicia Spargo caught up to Marquez and was waving his arms at him and everything. And he obviously wasn't happy when he got back into the pit box before they restarted. Alicia was, you could see he was upset with that move. And unfortunately, something similar happened in the restart. So we had the restart up towards turn 1. You had Marquez up the inside of Alicia Spargo. And you had Fabio Quartararo, who didn't get the best of starts. He shoved up the inside of Marquez, who obviously then had to sit up a bit, who then went into Alicia Spargo again, and those two both went off track. And yeah, it was quite an aggressive race. The first part, Marquez was doing the best he could, and he had some quite aggressive moves put on him, which was quite nice to see people dishing out the aggression back on Marquez, as we've seen him dish out on other riders. Like Joan Mir put on a really good move, which I think took Marquez by surprise and lost him a couple of places. But yeah, on the restart, Mark didn't quite get the best of starts. Like I said, he had another coming together with Alicia Spargo. It was unfortunate for Bagnaia because he was leading the first race before it was red flagged. He'd actually gone for the soft tyres, which worked to begin with, but unfortunately on the restart, for whatever reason, they just weren't working for him, and he couldn't get the start that he wanted, and he couldn't get into the lead, and he suffered all race long with those tyres, unfortunately. Jorge Martin, who broke the lap record in qualifying and took pole position, he got a good start, as did Mir, and Jack Miller as well got a really good start. And we had a bit of a fight between those guys at the front, and Jorge Martin just looked so in control and just looked really good at the front. If anyone got near him, he just managed to just keep calm and keep doing what he was doing, and no one could really get past him. Mir tried so many times to get past, but wasn't able to. Marc Marquez dropped back to, I think it's about 14th place at one point. In fact, Paulo Spargo came past him. His brother Alex Marquez came past him at one point as well. It was just a really bizarre race to watch. But yeah, just leading from the get-go, Jorge Martin, just a class act showing that he deserves to be in MotoGP. Obviously, he's still a rookie, and he's showing, what he can do. And like I said, was absolutely stunning throughout the whole race. Joan Mir with the Suzuki. Obviously, this weekend Suzuki had the rider adjusting device for the starts, you know, where it squats the whole bike down, and they've been using it throughout the lap as well as a lot of the different manufacturers do now. And that's just helped Suzuki just close the gap a little bit, because they have been struggling throughout the first half of the season, but definitely looking a bit more like it around here. And we obviously saw that Joan Mir should have won a race around here last season before that was red flagged. He was leading by quite a comfortable margin before it was red flagged, but yeah, he was showing you know, his strong form around here in this race. Fabio Quartararo, he did manage to get back into third place after fighting with Zarco and Jack Miller for quite a lot of the race. Obviously, you know, the Yamaha is down on in terms of speed with the Ducatis, but the factory Yamahas are definitely, they've stepped up their top speed and their acceleration and that compared to the Petronas Yamahas, that's for sure. And yeah, Quartararo was racing really well. I did forget to mention his teammate Vinales, who before the red flag was looking very, very good, putting on some aggressive moves and outbraking Marquez as well. Unfortunately for him, because it's a quick restart procedure, he unfortunately stalled it on the grid and then had to push it into the pit, and unfortunately he had to start from pit lane. And he also ended up with a long lap penalty in the race as well, which was not good. So his race went from bad to worse, and yeah, he was right at the back, unfortunately for him. Salvadori did not restart the race. He had to go to the medical centre to get a check over. Danny Pedrosa did manage to restart, because they basically done a complete restart of the race but just knocked one lap off. They were meant to do 28 laps. They ended up doing 27. It is a bit weird though, because usually if you cause the red flag you are not allowed to restart, but I think it's because they've done a complete restart that Pedrosa was allowed to take his place on the grid. So Valentino Rossi, obviously he had announced his retirement. He was fighting just outside the top 10. The likes of his brother and Bastianini. Iker Lecuona, he was quite high up at one point. He was giving Marc Marquez quite a hard time at one point. Obviously Lecuona is unfortunately fighting for his future in MotoGP. He's already said he doesn't want to go back to Moto2. So maybe he'll end up in World Superbikes if he doesn't get a ride in MotoGP. Will Petronas Yamaha give him a chance? It's a bit of a gamble, but you never know. They are struggling to get riders at the moment. Back at the front, Jorge Martin just managed to start easing out a bit of a gap over Joan Mir. Mir just not able to keep up with the pace of Martin. You had Nakagami. He was actually top Honda. He was having a pretty decent race, just ahead of Marc Marquez and Alex Marquez. Danny Pedrosa was inside the top 10. Bagnaia was going backwards. He went outside the top 10, unfortunately for him. Like I said, he led the two laps they'd done before his red flag to begin with. Jack Miller, unfortunately, just trying too hard to hold on to the back of Fabio Quartararo in third. He lost the front and crashed out of the race, unfortunately for him. So DNF for Jack Miller. Oliveira, he had what looked like a mechanical failure, and he had to pull out of the race, as did Aleix Espargaro. It looked like Aleix was clutching his ribs a bit as well, so whether being hit twice by Marquez kind of injured himself a little bit as well, potentially. But yeah, Quartararo did manage to keep at bay Zarco. It was a bit of a weird one. So Jorge Martin, went on to take his very first win in MotoGP in spectacular fashion. He rode really, really well, rode really sensibly, and you know, he just looked so good on that Pramac Ducati. Obviously, he has been injured, but now after the summer break, he is back to full fitness and able to take his first victory and Pramac Ducati's first victory in the Premier class, which is good to see as well. So yeah, Martin took the win. Joan Mir took second place. Fabio Quartararo completed the podium in third. Then on the final lap, Brad Binder, who was actually in sixth or seventh place, managed to get past, sixth place, managed to get past both Nakagami and Zarco. Managed to move his way up to fourth and finish in fourth place, so top KTM was fourth. Then you had Nakagami in fifth, like I said, top Honda. Zarco was in sixth. Alex Rins was seventh. Marc Marquez eighth. Alex Marquez in ninth. Danny Pedrosa 10th. Bagnaia 11th. Bastianini in 12th place. He had to do a long lap penalty. Valentino Rossi was 13th. Luca Marini 14th. And Iker Lecuona took the last point scoring position after dropping like a stone down to 15th place. Cal Crutchlow was 16th. Danny Pedrosa was 18th. And Maverick Vinales, who had to start from pit lane and had a long lap penalty, was 19th place. So yeah, it was a pretty decent MotoGP race. It was a bit strung out, you know, towards back mid race, but Mir done his best to keep Martin at bay, but wasn't able to. And yeah, congratulations to Jorge Martin for taking his first victory of the season as a rookie as well. Very impressive. And yeah, obviously we come back here next weekend for the second race around here, and you know, is it going to be the same? Is it going to be different? Well, if last year taught us anything, it's probably going to be much different to what it was this weekend. I'm sure that Bagnaia will press reset and be able to hopefully get back towards the front. Depends on the weather as well. And obviously everyone's got more data than what they did for this first race, because they've now done a whole race around here, so they can, you know, put that into practice for the second race. But yeah, it's going to be a interesting second race. But yeah, it's good race from Jorge Martin, and Quartararo extended his lead in the championship over Zarco. So that is now at 40 points, exactly as the lead. Quartararo is on 172 points, and Zarco is on 132. Joan Mir is in third on 121. Bagnaia is fourth on 114. Jack Miller is fifth. He is on 100. And then in sixth place is Vinales on 95. Miguel Oliveira is 7th on 85. Brad Binder is 8th on 73. And Alicia Spargo is in 9th on 61. So yeah, that is it for MotoGP and the Styrian Grand Prix. Like I said, they will be back here next weekend to race around here again. Hopefully this time, fourth time lucky, we won't get any red flags, but unfortunately it's the nature of the circuit. You're going from a very high speed straight into, you know, a first gear hairpin. A lot of the braking zones are either uphill or downhill, and yeah, it's just one of those circuits where, you know, safety is starting to creep into it, and whether it is safe for MotoGP to actually race around here. Luckily, no one was seriously injured in the crash between Pedrosa and Savadori. But yeah, fingers crossed we can get a nice race around here again next weekend with no red flags. So yeah, that has been it as we come to the end of my race with Quartararo. Next time out, I'm looking forward to using a Ducati around here, because I was having troubles a little bit with well, before Mir crashed out. Obviously Zarco and Miller second and third. But yeah, looking forward to using Jorge Martin around here. And it's actually the first time on the Xbox that I've won a race around the Red Bull Ring in any category, which was very, very interesting. I wasn't really expecting to win, but we did manage to. But anyway, guys, that is it from me. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave this video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel for more content. Should see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to stay safe, watch out, and look after yourself. See you guys next time. See you!